But first, it's a milestone for America's middle class. Back to where we were in 1996. New data shows a decrease the last 10 years of the earnings of middle-class Americans. Income fell to $49,500 last year, a level not seen in 15 years. And over the last 10-year period, income for middle-class Americans down 7%. Don Peebles is the chairman of the Peebles Corporation, a member of President Obama's National Finance Committee. Don, is it officially a lost decade for the middle in this country?
Well, I think it's certainly a lost opportunity. This has been a lack of progress. We've lost ground, and middle-class Americans are really suffering.
The top end has done well, though, so that's where you get the this whole political narrative that the middle is suffering at the expense of the top.
Well, what's happening right now is we're seeing a transformation or a dramatic change in our economy. We have gone from a manufacturing-oriented economy in terms of middle-class job opportunities. Those jobs are now lost. Many of them are lost overseas, and so now our economy is paying for intellectual property and intellectual ideas, and so we're going to be a much more educated economy, and the jobs that are going to be created are going to require greater levels of education.
That's happening faster than American families can transition, and that's the problem.
It is a problem.
Let's bring in Don Peck. He's the features editor with The Atlantic. He wrote the September cover story, Can the Middle Class Be Saved? And we certainly hope the answer to that question is yes. But Don, America's middle class, it's earning less. At the same time, the cost of raising a child has gone up. New data this week from USDA. It now costs an average $227,000 to raise a kid to age 18. That's an increase of 40% or about $60,000 compared to 10 years ago. That's just for the basics like food, clothing, healthcare, transportation. It does not include college. What is the breaking point for the middle class here?
Well, I mean, I think we're at it. I mean, you know, if you look at birth rates, you know, since the crash, they've plummeted. So many people feel like they can't afford children right now. Their lives are too insecure. You know, even marriage rates have declined, you know, rapidly since the crash. So in almost every respect, the middle class or millions of middle class people at least are deferring family decisions. Families are shrinking as a result, and that's a tragedy for millions of people. It's going to have demographic consequences as well.
For those of you who are thinking about not having another junior, I will give you the highlight from that report as well, is that the more children you have, there's economies of scale, actually. The per-child cost goes down because I guess you share, you know, shelter and the like. But I want to talk about education because, frankly, that survey does not take into account education. You got to save money. If you don't save enough money, well, maybe you can borrow it, right? Maybe not. According to a new survey by Inside Higher Education, college admissions officers say that they are actually looking for students who can pay full price. They say 22% of those admissions officers say that the economy is driving their choice, and in some cases, money trumps smarts, grades, and a student record. Don Peebles, let me get this straight. The middle class is earning less. At the same time, it costs more to raise a child, and according to this survey, you need to have all the money in your pocket if you want your kid to have a sure shot at getting into college.
It's a tough time right now. Colleges are businesses. In fact, if you look, Stanford University is trying to have a school here in New York City, right at Roosevelt Island. The idea now is schools are being competitive. They're trying to go and attract students who can actually pay to go to school, and that's a shrinking environment. So yeah, the middle class is being hit on many ends right now. Loss of jobs, household income going down dramatically. The poverty rate has increased to the highest it's ever been in 52 years, and yet now education is more expensive. But there are some opportunities out here. On the brighter side here is that there are student loans available.
Right.
There are other types of grants available, and education is certainly a priority of the president's administration right now. And so there's a big effort to make education affordable, because I think we all have to recognize that the future jobs in America are going to require a much higher level of education and skills. We're not going to be able to provide cheaper labor and larger pools of labor than, say, China, Asia, Latin American countries. We're going to have to bring something different to the equation, and that's going to be our intellect, our freedom, the ideas, the creativeness of America, and that starts at education. So one of the things that we need to do, all of us do, is we need to emphasize education and help pay for it.
Yeah, well, Don Peck, that's the problem, paying for it, because, you know, middle-class families, they think, I've saved all this money, now I'm going to pay full price for this tuition. You know, that just doesn't feel fair when tuition keeps going up, when, you know, income isn't going up, you don't have a house that you can tap into to pay for tuition. Is that a bubble that is just bound to burst?
Well, I think to some extent it is, and that's really unfortunate. I mean, you mentioned housing, and housing has been critical to college attendance, especially for working class families, lower middle class families. They've historically used home equity to fund college. That's a hard decision for them, and now it's a decision that's out of their hands because of the housing bust. They don't have the bank accounts that they used to. A lot of lower middle class, working class families are beginning to doubt the value of a college education, which is unfortunate and a mistake. So, I mean, I agree with Don that we really need to make education a priority. We need to make sure that it is affordable to and available to all America's citizens. Unfortunately, it seems to be going in the wrong direction right now.
As you can see, there are clearly two economies right now, the haves and the have-nots. Let's bring back our guests. Don Peebles, how do we close the gap between these two?
Oh, I think that we have to do it through education, educational opportunities, and also we have to rethink about how we approach jobs. First of all, right now, all of us have an alignment of interest, those in the top end of the income spectrum and those in poverty. We all are an alignment of interest. We all have the same goals. And so what we have to do is start looking more with a wide-angle lens as opposed to a myopic lens. So that means organized labor has to figure out a way to make their American workers more competitive with global markets. We as businesses have to become more efficient and look to create better opportunities for our employees and continuing education, supporting them through additional educational opportunities. We do that at our company. And I think we also have to look at a tax policy now that incentivizes job creation. What we hear about taxes now is that the rich aren't paying their fair share, and it's just not fair. You should raise taxes on rich people. That'll help solve it. What needs to happen is we need to eliminate or get away from this debate of class warfare, this anger and frustration, but how can we work together to create jobs and better opportunities for many people and for all Americans? John Peck, let me have you weigh in here on this. I mean, the haves and the have-nots, the haves are certainly getting a beating in these days from Washington and the media.
Well, they are, and you know, some of that's unfair. I think we should continue to celebrate people who've made great achievements in their work. But I do have to disagree with Don in one respect. You know, we've kind of reoriented the economy over the past 20 or 30 years. We've oriented it in a way that promotes rapid technological advance, globalization. This has advantaged people at the very top of the economy. At the same time, we've expected less and less of those people. Marginal tax rates have fallen and fallen since the mid-20th century. So, you know, the solution to our national problems is not soaking the rich, but I do think that we should expect the rich to pay a little bit more to help the millions of Americans who've fallen out of the middle class rebuild their lives.
All right, Don Peck, Don Peebles, as always, great to spend a Saturday morning with you. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, imagine being able to spot